Alright, we're back. We need to take off this air intake to access some of these bolts because all this crap needs to come off. And I need the, thank you. I also need those channel locks back. I need a long flathead for this hose clamp for the air intake going into the turbo down here. There's also looks like a vacuum tube that runs to that intake just before the turbo and up to the valve cover there. Then we have to take off the hard pipe before we take off this turbo, or this intake rather, off of the turbo. Here's us.
You should have a factory cane, man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I can actually spin it. That's cool. Okay. It's kind of a pain to do. That one's, I think, okay, that one's crimped down there. This is the other one. We'll go hose side with it. Good idea. We'll do the same thing down here. Just give me those actually. Probably be an easier way to get on it. With some of these hard lines for your AC in the way here, it's going to be a little bit difficult to get to this one and break it loose. But it saves me from replacing my intake. It is necessary. I think that's pretty close here. Thanks, Mike. Little Billy ran inside. Ha, okay. That's another good thing to mention. Part of the reason that's stationary still is because there's a bracket holding it on with a 10mm.
I have that bitch on that side.
Oh yeah. Now we should be able to move it around, get that hard pipe off of there, so we can pull this intake. Perfect. Okay. One of the things I like to do when I take anything apart is I like to keep the bolt or the nut with whatever piece it's associated to. So once I get this off, I'm going to go ahead and pop this bolt back through the bracket. Set it off to the side together. Use those channel locks again. Hold this hose while I break the pipe loose inside. That's what I'm going to attempt to do anyways. Torque on that. I don't want to tear up the hose. I haven't marred it up or any, but I just need to break it loose. Being that it's closer to the block and the turbos, the higher heats down here is going to make it a little bit harder to deal with, but you know what? It might be a moot attempt, or a moot point rather, because it'll come up with the intake. So, for all of you watching this, I'm going to try and edit that part out. If I can't, I've already started doing this, then now would be a good time to tighten this clamp back up, since I haven't really broken it loose yet, and steer our attention back towards the hose clamp down here, rather. Hold on, I don't know if I can't see my, there we go. Yeah, that hose clamp down there on the turbo side, right there. So we're going to take that off, and then this whole tube will come with it, so we don't even have to worry about that anymore. So I buttoned that back up. There you go, Mikey.
Thanks,
Thank you. Oh, that's nice. That actually, hose clamp connection came loose down there pretty well. Let's see if I can wiggle it off there. People fail to show you how hands-on you must get with some things. Grab this all like so. There's your turbo. For anyone that's wondering if you should remove your turbo silencer ring, this piece right here, no. Cool, it'll sound cool. It'll also harm the flow and the actual natural turbulence of how things flow into the center of your turbo. Don't break your VGT or you'll be buying a new turbo. It's gonna sound good, plenty good, as soon as we do the rest of this delete. So I'm actually leaving this guy alone. I've heard of guys that take him out and they put him back in, so they lose a 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of boost just by removing this, because things don't flow as aerodynamically well. So another point I'm going to mention while we're on the topic, people want you to remove this duckbill looking thing in here with the foam around it. There's a lot of wishy-washy things about it. Take the foam off of it, put the duckbill back in there. That scoop at the end is going to funnel this air towards the center of your turbo appropriately till you get the best top end boost when you're doing 80-90 down the freeway. So old fart on the YouTube actually pointed that out on a bunch of charts one day, and so I actually adapted my own fix to that. So if you're not looking at spending money on an intake and you do want some better flow here, but you don't want to lose anything valuable towards your turbo, put that duckbill back in there with no foam on it. I've done it for 10,000 miles. I love it. It does sound better. You'll be happy. So here you go. Would you set that to the side for me, please, buddy? And then we'll go ahead and get this EGR off here. Alrighty, guys. We're back. Show you some of the progress we've made here. Clayton had to go to his half-day school thing for his new job. And Mikey's a sick bum, so he left for the day. Other than that, we've removed the 4 10mm bolts that hold on the EGR. Okay, so that's off, unplugged. In addition to that, you saw we've already removed the crossover tube. Over this way, we removed the air box and the intake tube connected to it up to the vacuum to the head. You saw that. We removed the actual air intake from the turbo. I have disconnected this nut, or taken off the nut that was holding down this dipstick tube to this bracket to the EGR cooler, which will be removed next. That nut's right there. I also disconnected our V-band for our Turboback exhaust, so that's already loose. I'm gonna have to start working on from rear to front, start disconnecting the exhaust and start pulling things off sequentially. That'll be the easiest way to get that front section off of that front hanger. At that point, we'll be ready to install the new exhaust. Coming back to the EGR cooler, I've already moved back this ring, or this pinch clamp here, set it to the side. We are going to have to reuse these clamps probably for the Sinister bypass coolant hose, which will be running from this coolant runner back here to the back of the EGR cooler, from the motor to here, back to here. Sorry, that was really bad view. This right here, going up to the back of the EGR cooler, will be rerouted over to here. So we'll just be bypassing the EGR cooler. As far as what to look at bolts wise, so there's a couple here on this side, 10 millimeters holding on this bracket. Same thing on the other side. This portion comes up, as well as there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 2 hard ones to get to in the back here, holding that on. And then there might be one or two up front here. We'll have to see when we get this off, but we're going to tune back in here as soon as we get the majority of this junk off here. Show you guys what our progress is. Stay tuned.